Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well. I hope the car noises are not too loud, but all the other windows in this apartment are open because it is so warm on the Azores lately. There has been no rain in weeks, which is not a good thing and not a normal thing. And the only way to cool this apartment down that we're living in is to open the windows in the morning before the sun comes around, and that is right now. And that's also the only time I could sit in front of a camera because it's so warm. Oh my god. Also, I have a new microphone, so I hope it works. I hope the quality is not too bad. This is already the second time I'm filming this video, so let's keep the fingers crossed. It's going okay. Today I have a bookish video for you. As you guys know, I do island content and I also do bookish content because books are really my passion. I'm a writer and author myself and I love to read, and I used to make booktube videos. I have thought a lot about if I should create a second channel for the books or not. But to be honest, it is a part of who I am. I will implement what I'm currently reading more into my island vlogs that are coming up and into the renovation vlogs. But every now and then I think it's okay to make like a video like this that is completely dedicated to books. Before we get started with the tag, by the way, I'm leaving the original creators down below, even though I've seen a billion versions of this tag around by this time because it's been going around for so many years. But before we get started with the questions of the tags, just a few numbers. First of all, I'm filming this in the middle of July. I have no idea when I'm gonna upload this video. Maybe I can upload it very quick. Maybe it's been months, I don't know. But there is just so little capacity for me to edit videos lately because editing videos takes quite a lot of time, and this is not something that is paid for me. Like, I don't earn a single cent with making videos, so it's not a part of my job. And it also doesn't help with the renovations, which are taking up the entire rest of my life right now. So there's just very little room to make videos and to edit videos and to take care of YouTube, as sad as it is, because I really enjoy doing this. But yeah, there's just very little room. And also, my laptop gets very hot when you edit and it's so warm. Again, it's so warm. In terms of yearly reading goal, I would love to one year be able to read 100 books again. I used to do that, but just life is so busy. Like, real life out there is so busy. So I'm not doing that. In the beginning of the year, I had no idea what this year had in store for me, but I knew that everything was open. I knew that I was going into a year of unknowns and new adventures. So I was like, I probably don't have that much time to read, but I want to read more than the years before. So I set my reading goal on 33 books, and I'm currently at 21, so I'm doing well. Of course, since the renovation started, my reading has slowed down quite a bit, which is such a shame because I'm in such a reading mood. All I want to do is sit somewhere in the shade and read a good book. Like, that's what I'm really in the mood for right now, but there's very little time and you gotta prioritize some things over others. Anyway, enough small talk. Let's get into the actual tag. The best book you have read so far in 2022. And to no one's surprise, it is Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. This was, I think, the first or the second book I read this year in January, and I'm so obsessed with it. I've talked about it in so many videos already, but I am just so in love with it. I just already want to reread this book because it's just so good and fantastic, and it really has changed my relationship to nature even further than it already has. And I'm in love with this book. I wouldn't be surprised if at the end of the year this is my favorite book of the year, even though I read it in January. But this is, without a doubt, #1 so far this year. The best sequel you have read so far in 2022. When I was preparing for the tag, I realized I had only read a single sequel since the beginning of the year, and luckily I really enjoyed it, so it fits for this question, and it is Record of a Spaceborne View by Becky Chambers. If you've been around here, you know I absolutely adore and love Becky Chambers, and this book was no exception, even though I do think so far it might have been the weakest book in the series. I was not super hooked. It took me forever to get into it, which is not really normal for Becky Chambers, but I still overall enjoyed it, especially towards the end of the book. I had a lot of fun with it. A new release you haven't read yet, but really want to. For this question, I had to think a little bit because I don't really keep track of publishing that much anymore these days. I used to, like crazy. I used to know exactly when which book came out, but nowadays I get inspired when I see a book somewhere and it speaks to me, and then I pick it up, and I don't care if it was published in 2003 or yesterday. So for me, it's not as present anymore when which books are released, but one book that I do have as an ebook that was released, I think, this year. I might be wrong, but I've seen it around only this year, so maybe I'm right. Sorry if I'm wrong, but it's Elder Race by Adrian Tchaikovsky, which is like a sci-fi novella following an anthropologist, and I studied cultural anthropology, so that sounds very exciting to me. And another book that I'm actually also not 100% sure if it was released this year or at the end of last year, is The Intersectional Environmentalist, and that one I don't own yet, but I really want to. I'm debating if I should gift it to myself for my birthday, which is coming up in 2 weeks, but I don't have money because we're renovating a house, so no. But I really want to own this book, and I really, really want to read it. Your most anticipated release for the second half of the year? Again, same dilemma as the question before, and that is that I just don't keep track of it that much. But one book, because I watch BookTube, and one book that of course you cannot escape, which I'm also very excited for, is Babel? I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it in English. It's Babel in German, so by R.F. Kuang, and I have read The Poppy War, not the entire trilogy, I really need to catch up on that, but I've read the first book and I absolutely loved like the subtle yet direct social commentary in this book, as well as the writing style and just the world and everything. So I'm very excited what she's doing outside of that world as well. Your biggest disappointment so far? Unfortunately for this question, I have 3 answers, and that makes me so sad because, as I said, I've only read 21 books this year, and it's not like these 3 disappointments were like the only books that like didn't blow me away. They're just kind of the worst books that I've read this year because they were so utterly disappointing. The first one being Das Haus am Rand der Klippen by Lucy Clarke. The English title is You Let Me In, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And here's an interesting thing. Lucy Clarke has published different novels before that I've read, which were all like super summer vibe books with some kind of element of drama and mystery to it. But overall, it was still like a very summery book, just with like an interesting and dramatic real life twist in the middle. Like, hey, you can live in the most beautiful beach town or be on a sailboat and still like life can strike. And I love that. I loved her other books that I've read. I think I've read 2 or 3 before. And then this book came around and I was already confused that they changed the cover style. I'm gonna put the German covers of the books that I've read here. And I was like, why does this look so different? But it still says novel on the German book, and I didn't look up the English version. If I would have looked up the English edition, I would have seen that this is actually a thriller, and I don't like thrillers and I don't enjoy them. I don't read them. So that was uncomfortable surprise. And I also didn't think that it was written very well. I was not engaged whatsoever. I didn't like the writing style, also didn't like the translation into German, and I was so disappointed because I've loved her work before, and from what I've seen, she now really goes into the direction of thriller, so all her future books are not for me either, and I'm very sad about that. Another disappointment, unfortunately, is An Astronaut's Guide to Life on Earth by Chris Hadfield. If you've seen my TBR of the Year video, you would know that I was so eager to read this book. because it has been on my TBR for so many years, and I have a very soft spot for astronomy and like science among the stars and everything in relation to that. And I have seen Chris Hadfield, like, you know, in the media, and I really liked what I had seen so far. So I was super excited to get into this book, also because it promises to be like very inspirational, which I enjoy. But I really disliked the book. I read it together with Anya from Well Traveled Books. I'm gonna leave her channel link down below. Go check her out, she's amazing. And we both were just sending each other like voice messages like, oh my God, why? This was so filled with white cis hetero man privilege. It's just dripping in it. Like, you can just see the Nike quote, just do it, and save yourself a lot of time reading this book, because that is, like, in terms of inspiration and motivation, this is everything this book says. Like, oh, just do it and it's gonna work out. And I mean, he also acknowledges that, like, it could have not worked out for him, but it did. So kind of not the point. And I don't know, he did like this thing, like humble bragging. Like, he tried to be humble, but by trying to be humble, he came across as even more arrogant, as if he would have just been proud of what he did and said, like, here, see, I've achieved this and this is how I got there, and like, this is what you can learn from it. And I was also missing failure. I was really missing like his emotions and like descriptions of things. And like, did you ever have any negative feelings, or in general any emotions at all? I was just like 2 chapters away from the end, but I was so frustrated and disappointed and sad, and I could feel like a reading slump creeping up, and I was like, this is not worth it. I'm DNFing this. Oh, by the way, I DNF'd this too a few chapters in, and I read the end and it would have not been worth it for me to continue reading. So both of them being DNFs. My third disappointment of the year was a book that I did finish and that I might be the saddest about, because I was expecting this to be a new favorite book of all times, and it is She Who Became the Sun. This book is so hyped and so well loved, and I honestly don't 100% understand why, because I really did not like it at all. I did not enjoy this book. I think it was just not for me, but the writing style and everything, like, it's just not for me. I love the concept, I love the cover. I went into it really expecting to absolutely adore this, and in the very beginning I thought I might. The very beginning of the story I really enjoyed, and then it was just not for me. The biggest surprise for me, that would be Tiny Beautiful Things by Cheryl Strayed, which I absolutely loved. I read it also towards the beginning of the year, and it was just like a random ebook that I picked up on my Kindle one random day. And I didn't think much of it. I had zero expectations, but I really love this book and I highly recommend it. Favorite new author, either a debut author or an author that is new to you. So for this, I had to think a lot, because except for, of course, I mean, Robin Wall Kimmerer, I didn't read anything where I'm like, oh yeah, that's a favorite new author this year. But I did enjoy someone's books, and I'm planning to read everything else she has written. So I guess that kind of counts. It's definitely not like a favorite of all time, but it's definitely someone whose work I enjoy and whose work I want to read more of. However, this is definitely not a debut author, because unfortunately she passed away in 2011, and who I'm talking about is Katrin Rueg. Katrin Rueg is a woman from Switzerland, and she bought like a piece of land and some old traditional stone ruins in the Ticino area, so like in the south of Switzerland, in the mountains, right on the border to Italy. And she is rebuilding them from scratch. And it's such a fantastic, fascinating journey. I have a very soft spot for this particular region in Europe in my heart. And to see someone else so many years ago, because these books were written before I was ever born. So her whole adventure of this, like renovating the old traditional house in that region, was also happening long before I was born. So for me, it's like so fascinating to read this because it's like so parallel to my own life and set in another place, not the place that I live in, but another place that is like so important to me and to who I am. So that has been like such a wonderful journey. Is it definitely a book of its time? Absolutely. There are some things that are nowadays politically incorrect in there, but that weren't politically incorrect back then. Like a lot of like gender stereotypes and that kind of stuff, which I don't appreciate. And also you can see that the publishing industry was working very, very, very different back then, just from the way the book was written and published. And yeah, it's not the best book I've ever read by no means, but she has written a lot of them and they're very short and quick reads, and I'm just excited to see where her adventure is going. Newest fictional crush. I don't get those. Newest favorite character. So far this year, I don't have a character that is like really stuck in my mind, but one character that I do think about sometimes is London from Love and Other Disasters, which I, by the way, enjoyed, despite it being a romance and therefore a genre that I usually do not read that much. A book that made you cry. I don't cry while reading books pretty much ever. Like, a book would need to do a lot for me to cry. But a book that made me feel many emotions, and a lot of them being like surprise and anger, is a book that currently only exists in German, but it might be translated in the future, and that is Couchsurfing in Saudi Arabian. And even if you don't speak German, I assume you understand the title. It is Couchsurfing in Saudi Arabia. The author has written many books in this style where he goes couch surfing in countries where you usually wouldn't do that. And I know that the first book, Couch Surfing in Iran, is translated into English. So if you want to check that out, go ahead. I can only highly recommend it. The first book was my favorite of this whole series. And he also did Russia, China, and now Saudi Arabia. And I still enjoyed it very much. It's definitely not an all-time favorite book of mine, but I did enjoy it because I just really like his approach of things. He just tells his experience. He doesn't aim to know it all and to make like final judgments on a place or their people, but still it is like such an intimate, tiny glimpse into a very big, complex reality of a country and their people. And since he goes to countries that you usually wouldn't visit, especially not as freely as he does, it is just so interesting to me. And in some parts, this book made me very angry because of some things that some people said. And if you've read it, you know. Yeah, it's just highly interesting for me. So it made me feel many things, so I guess it counts. A book that made you happy. My own book that I just released, so I guess that made me very happy because yeah, it did. Okay, shameless plug over, but if you want to check it out, link is down below. And another book that made me happy, of course, Record of a Spaceborne Few by Becky Chambers. The most beautiful book that you bought or received this year. And for me, that is The Priory of the Orange Tree. I have not read this book yet, but I absolutely love the cover. I'm like so obsessed with the design of this book that I actually went ahead and bought a copy because I just think it's so stunning. I really hope I will love it. I got it recommended from a friend like 1,000 times, so and she knows my reading taste very well. So I hope she's correct, and I hope I will love this whenever I get around to read this chunker. Another book that is just very beautiful, especially from the inside, is The Most Important Comic Book on Earth, Stories to Save the World. And this is a huge bind-up of comics from countless artists and celebrities and activists, all about the climate crisis and the extinction that is going on and everything. And it was put together by Rewriting Extinction, which is a charity that I also volunteer for at this point. But I've heard about this before. I worked for them, and yeah, I just love it. is such an interesting approach of handling the crisis, and the artists are just so fantastic. It is such a wonderful, wonderful bind-up. A question that is not in the original tag, but that I kind of had to include because I just felt like being shady a little bit for a second. And that is the most ugly book you've bought or received this year. And that would be this one. This is Die Katze und der General, again a German title, by Nino Haratischvili. And I have read, oh my god, I don't know the English title. I think it's The Eighth Life of Brilka, also in English, because that is like word for word the title in German as well. I'm gonna put the English cover over here, and I'm gonna put the other German cover over here. And you see that it's supposed to match with this one. This one I think was released after, but I hate this cover so much. It's so ugly. And how is that motivating you to pick up a book with, oh my god, I don't even know how many pages this has, with 800 pages? Like, really? But I'm excited to read it. I'm very excited to read it because I trust the author. But if it was for cover alone, hell no, I would have never picked this up. What books do you need to read by the end of the year? Well, pretty much everything from my yearly TBR that I posted in the beginning spring of this year. But what I'm currently reading, which is from the TBR, is The Secret Network of Nature. This is just a dust jacket because I'm reading it right now. Then I'm also currently reading Write Naked, which is like an advice book for writers. Then the rest of the trilogy of, I think the English title is The Age of Five by Trudy Canavan. I devoured every Trudy Canavan book that ever came out, but the last series that she published, I realized that there was like a massive lack of diversity, especially because it was such a complex world. And I just realized that there was so little diversity in it. And then I decided to go back and reread one of her older trilogies that I've read when I was a teenager. And this specific trilogy I read within a week, all 3 books, even though they're all 800 pages long. And I don't remember anything that happened. So I thought like, this is perfect, so I can finally get a refresher. Unfortunately, the whole diversity thing is also an issue in here. And there is this whole like, oh yeah, like the good people are called the whites and their enemy have dark skin and use black magic and these kind of things. It's not like anything like directly offensive, but it does make me uncomfortable and I'm a bit scared to move on with the rest of the series. But I really want to reread it before I make a final judgment. A book that I also really want to read is All We Can Save, and I think I'm gonna save this book for Climathon, which will be probably happening in November this year because I don't have time in September to host it. But yeah, the idea is to have Climathon in November, but there will be an announcement video whenever everything is settled. Then I also have Making Kin, Ecofeminist Essays from Singapore, which was a very kind gift from one of my patrons, which I've been eyeing this book ever since I saw it on Anatomy, and I'm very excited to dive into this, and also this cover is also very, very nice. And finally, I really want to read Ace by Angela Chen. I have heard absolutely fabulous things about this book, and yeah, I just really, really want to read this book before the year ends. So this is it. Thank you so much for watching. Again, in the future, I will implement whatever I'm reading a little bit more into my island videos. So it is really like vlogs about my life, because my books and my island life are very much connected, like my writing and my reading, as well as whatever I experience in real life. I mean, for me, that is all one, even though right now on my channel, everything is separate, but in real life it's not. So I'm gonna try to make that happen. But there are also going to be a few bookish videos here and there, for example, the Climathon coming up towards the end of the year. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what your favorite book was so far this year, or your worst book. And I hope you have a fantastic day. Take care of yourself. Goodbye.